Been a week since my last video, so lots really to talk about. Some really very nice things. On Saturday, I went up to catch up with Steve at Loxheath and find out what's been happening in the world of Beacon, and collected my award from the 2011 Beacon Awards, where I picked up Best Characterisation for my role as the Marquis de Sade in a story of the Adventures of Stephen Brown, which I'm immensely proud, and I actually finally got to see on Saturday. Although I was both embarrassed, as I always am, to watch myself, but equally disturbed about actually how the role came across. But I think that's intentional. But it's a kind of like a disturbing character. But it's the Marquis de Sade, for crying out loud. So I guess you'll have to watch that in order for that to make sense. But that's not yet uploaded onto YouTube, so I can't put a link in. But getting ready for going away on holiday with Chloe, which I'm really looking forward to. But the real event's kind of like over the weekend, and the start of this week is kind of like the mood of the nation. It's almost mirrored actually my health. On Saturday I started feeling quite ill and had some sort of heavy cold. I'm not going to call it flu because people call them flu, and it's not flu because when you've got flu you're actually laid up in bed and you can't bloody move. That's influenza. That's not what I had. Although my chest was hurting. It was breathing was a pain in the arse, or not. So basically I had absolutely no energy. I spent most of Sunday asleep, and I wasn't able to go to work on Monday. I spent most of Monday asleep as well. So it's about, anyway, that the mirror of the nation's mood being that the riots that had been going on up and down the country, I just can't. I'm constantly surprised about the excuses that people come up with when other people decide to break the law and steal or damage other people's property. It's a fundamental lack of respect and a fundamental greed that means that they steal other people's things. They might have been dealt a hard hand in life, or they might not have very much themselves, but surely those of all people would know that you don't steal from other people because they know what it's like to have nothing. I just find it pathetic that people give acts like that excuse, and try to give them reasons why people behave like that when it is fundamentally a complete lack of morals. There is no validity you can give to that sort of thing, and I just think it's despicable. What's been really heartening to see is that while the media went onto their massive bandwagon about blaming Twitter and the internet and social networking and communication in general for allowing people to run rings around the police, which to be honest can't necessarily be all that difficult, to go from blaming social networking for doing all that to then actually the heartening things was to see people using the very same networks to organise clean-up campaigns where they actually meet on the streets the next day to reclaim the streets, as it were, and to actually clean them up, and take possession of their communities from the thug element. That's the real British spirit. That's what makes this country great, and unfortunately I think that brilliance is too often too silent. It's too often too polite to speak. And sometimes what happens is that leaves the platform, the void, open for more fanatical or extremist elements to speak. But it's really good to see people really owning their community and doing things like that. The violence and acts is despicable. The media have got themselves into a white whipping frenzy about the reasons for this, or about whether the police are to blame. I mean, you can't envy the police. That must be a... I don't think I'd want to stand behind a plastic shield with 5 colleagues while 300 people down the road bash the shit out of a shop. I don't think I'd really be that inclined to go and tell them that they shouldn't do it. It's only actually really surprising that there haven't been more deaths. I mean, sadly there have been, but it's surprising that, God, if you think about this, if it would have been in America, half of them would have been shooting each other by now. So both really sad, sickening, and actually quite uplifting and enlightening. You got to love the politicians for trying to make political headway out of a situation, and blaming this on the cuts and the threatened cuts of more policing. It's just absolutely ridiculous, and to be honest, it actually I think it insults common decent law-abiding citizens, because most of the people in the country are, regardless of how much money they've got, regardless of what their background is, regardless of what their political persuasion is, they don't ransack shops or beat other people up just because they can, or just because they think they can get away with it, because the police seem to be powerless. We shouldn't need the police to make us behave properly. It's actually our role as decent people, as decent human beings, to behave properly and to set the moral standard. It just beggars belief, it really does.